Welcome to the Pander Brothers podcast. I'm Jakob,
I'm Arnold.
and we just released our feature film, Altered Ego. It's a psychological thriller, indie thriller. And in that, we are doing a series of podcasts around the life cycle of making an independent feature film, from the screenwriting process to development, and we're going to take it all the way to the distribution side of things, getting the movie into the world. On this episode, we are going to dive into the fundraising process, how we took this from a screenplay, started to develop the whole plan around it, and in this episode, how we actually got the money to start making our movie. And part of that, everything is in a context, right? So Arnold had been laying groundwork down in Los Angeles. I'd been working up here in Portland, forming my own production company, doing client work, and starting to kind of lay groundwork there. And then Arnold had been pitching stuff down in
Yeah,
LA.
we've both been kind of doing our own thing. Kind of like you do that, get a production company going that could bring in commercial work, and I'll see what I can manifest with our intellectual properties in LA.
Yeah. And which ultimately led us to a certain point, reaching a certain point where we were like, you know what, let's just bite the bullet and figure out how to make an independent feature film up in our hometown in Portland. We had budgeted the film, we'd written the script, we had done a script breakdown, we had budgeted it and created a preliminary schedule for how long it would take to shoot the thing. And
Put a date on the calendar.
And crucially, put a date on the calendar. We created a deadline for ourselves to say, we're going to make this movie on this date, no matter what, no matter how much money we raise, and we're going to get something shot. And
the manifestation that came from that was unexpected.
Yeah. And in this case, we set out to make a film that was in the ultra low budget model, the SAG ultra low budget, which at the time was 200,000 and below, or kind of in that was the kind of the ceiling was 200,000, and our film was budgeted out to around 880 at the time. And so for us, the next step was twofold. One was creating a pitch deck, something that we could present to prospective people that bring money into it, investors, and two, just kind of the strategy that we were going to take. And at that point in time, we knew that at this budget model, it's still a lot of money, but it's not millions. I mean, it's something that was feasible within a smaller community to raise. And we had a pretty good feeling that we could raise at least $50,000, and as a kind of within the kind of people that we knew, friends, family, people that were in a financial position to be able to invest $5,000 or $10,000 each. And so
we sort of
in that model,
we sort of, that was our baseline. We thought, as soon as we start asking for less than that, we're really not going to raise enough money as quickly as we'd like to actually make this happen. And then you suddenly have folks going, well, where'd my $1,000, where's my movie? So we kind of, that was part of the discipline too.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We really have to ask for enough.
Yeah, it's like you have to be very realistic with yourself. It's easy to say, oh God, we can do that. We just, bust this thing out for 10 grand and we could do that. But
and nowadays that's maybe more possible with with iPhones and whatnot. But still,
but even so, it's like, you still got to feed a crew. There's certain things that you just can't get around, and so you do have to plan accordingly. And so in this case, we knew that the comfort zone for being able to hire and put together the crew the size that we felt we needed to do this film was going to be in that 180 zone. But we also were of the mindset that if nothing else, we felt pretty confident we could raise around 50 grand, and for 50 grand, we could still make a really cool indie film. We could make something, and it may be a pared back version of what we had wanted to do, but we were at that. We were kind of getting into that perfect cocktail of organized, planned, and self-deluded.
So rational thought.
Yeah. So anyway, that kind of got the ball rolling. Like, this was what we were after. But at the same time, as Arnold was saying, I had put together a production company and had started to really lean into doing, industrials, commercial stuff, even music videos in Portland while he was down in LA. And in that, met a client who, over the course of the relationship, he became very interested in the idea of getting involved in films and feature films, and he was very well off and was looking for something new and exciting to do, and so he himself set up an office down in L.A. and started to pursue that kind of on outside of what we were doing, but Arnold was also living down there,
Hmm.
so I was able to introduce Arnold to my client, and so they got a rapport going down there as well. And it wasn't one of those things where we go, oh, let's go to the big fish right away. Oh, let's they'll see if they'll pony up and finance our film. We wanted to lay some groundwork ourselves and put some skin in the game, as it were, in terms of our own energy and contacts and stuff. And so
With that in mind, we thought, well, let's raise enough where we could potentially ask for matching funds or
yeah,
maybe more, but that we had something, some foundation laid
that's right. Yeah.
economically.
We got it up to around 40 grand on our own, and we were still pushing forward. We were like, we need to get another 10 grand. We were just in this, like, chunking away at it, chipping away at it. And
And we were already kind of amazed. And
yeah,
part of
and
this,
this was happening
yeah,
relatively
it was
quickly.
happening pretty quickly. And I think there was something to be said about the
The,
thesis of saying we are making a movie, not we want to make a movie. And so that
the date on the
the
calendar
data
was
on the
having
all
an
of these
impact.
things that were really I think lent credibility to the project because we had this sort of I guess look in our
This
eye
look
of,
in our eye.
of determination.
Was it
And
crazed or
yeah,
determined?
and then so that initial grouping of people that were close to home, as it were, um, did really you know I mean, set the tone because there is a psychology around, like you're referring to, this idea of, who's first in, who's going to take the first plunge and ultimately believing you.
Yeah.
And, it might be a parent, it might be a friend of the family, it might be, a loved one, what have you. So that means a lot, and
Yeah.
because it's true. When you sort of have that foundation laid, it does feel like okay, somebody believes in you. It doesn't. It's not
There,
all on me to believe in you.
yeah, I mean, hopefully what happens is there is a bit of a domino effect if you have it
Right.
planned right. And actually, as a kind of as a sidebar, there was a book that I had read a number of years ago called Shaking the Money Tree by a gentleman named Maury Wachowski. And he had written this book, and it was a little bit more oriented towards fundraising for documentary and from nonprofit oriented projects, but the philosophy in it and the organizational tools in it were really beneficial even to our effort to raise money for Altered Ego, in that it talked about strategies of thinking about who you're going to ask, thinking about how they're interrelated potentially, and who might be more willing to give versus somebody that might be on the fence, and start to ask in a particular order. Don't do it in a random order, but do it in a kind of thought through order, because there can be a path to those tumblers falling based on the relationships that those people have together. And when one of those people sees that their friend has gotten on board, that's going to get them a little bit more open to getting on board themselves. So it's just interesting things that
It feels like
is
a
a
shared risk
it's a
in a
shared
way.
risk, and it's also these are they're validators.
Mhm.
So the project's being validated, and you're kind of doing it in a particular order to
Kind
help
of build.
bolster and build that
Yeah.
confidence. So if you ever want to check out the Shaking the Money Tree, I think it's out of print, but I've seen it on Amazon, and it's a really good book to on fundraising.
So another critical tool that we used in the fundraising was the creative deck, and really that was a kind of a roadmap, of sorts to the strategy and having all of those big pieces in place, that we'd already created. All the things that are sort of like the nutshell pieces that you could present, relatively quickly and smoothly. And a part of that also is the visual assets that are a reflection of the themes of the story and the script and the vision. In our case, in the case of Altered Ego, it was sort of the architectural world, the design world, the sort of identity theft angle of the story. that really kind of lent credibility to the genre that it was in, of a kind of a thriller and a suspenseful psychological thriller. So we had visuals that ultimately became, um, set pieces that we could refer to as we describe the project, which really allows that person who you're, asking support from to have something to kind of hold on to and look at while you're talking. And it really supports the vision and allows them to really wrap their head around, where your head is at and what our vision was for this. And and then you can kind of get into the numbers and the data that backs that up, that
Yeah.
that really sorts to support the idea that it's a worthwhile project fiscally, and that there's an ROI, and that there's an actual trajectory that we're on, and that we envision toward a distribution deal, and so on. So all of that to say, you can kind of package the entire sort of life cycle in a way, of like from the production to post production to festivals, all of those things, the ROI, the business plan, into this deck, this project deck,
Yeah.
that
To
will
to present
to really
to
present to those folks, and then
and
that really gives the thing a foundation as well.
yeah, and one thing that I'd add to that is certain people, they respond to the things that make them emotionally connected, or feel the inroads into who they are. Some people are visual, some people are data oriented, some people are moved more by the vision and the passion for the project, and other people are really focused on the numbers, and is this seem realistic, is this a realistic venture to get involved with. That said,
And
you know
transparency is key. I mean,
yeah,
being really honest about the realities of movie making
that's
and the
right, and that's
business.
and that's kind of where I was going to go with that, was that is yeah is it's a high risk thing. Filmmaking is high risk, so it's very important to not mince words with
Sugarcoat it.
that at
Yeah.
all,
Yeah.
because that can really be difficult on professional relationships, personal family
Mhm.
relationships. You got to be very realistic that you're going to do everything in your effort to make that happen, to break even, make a profit. But at the same time, it's a very competitive and risky process. So there's also, you want to get the kind of true believers, the people that
Yeah.
are willing, that might have a different need than
Well, that's the thing. I mean,
strictly financial
that's
gain
right.
out
I
of
mean, you
out of it.
have that's right, because you have people that, in our case, because it was a this initial venture for us, and it was really, it was a big leap we were attempting. They want to support it, so some of those folks, at least for the first time, they might be willing to put money in, because they want to just see you succeed, but at
Mhm.
minimum that you're going to get the movie shot and edited, and you're going to have something at the end that you can actually call a movie
Yeah, and be proud of.
and be proud of. I mean, and
Yeah,
production value was key
yeah,
for us. We wanted this movie to look good and sound good and be well acted, and all of it be marketable. So and be a ultimately be a great story, be entertaining.
yep,
But there's all these considerations going in. But for us, we wanted it to look competitive.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, for sure. So basically, with the deck now in hand, we started working the phones and started calling that core group of people that we felt would be open to getting on board with the project. And in fairly rapid succession, I would say within, a number of weeks, we found ourselves at around the 40K mark. And I got a call, and lo and behold, it was from this client who I hadn't heard from in a while. We hadn't spoken in a while. Just called out of the blue uh, to invite us to his annual Christmas party. And in this conversation, which was very casual, friendly, cordial conversation, he happened to ask us what we were up to. And so I told him, I was like, well, we're actually in the middle of raising money for indie feature film, and we've already raised about 40 grand, and we're in the middle of it. And he was like, before I could really go much further, he was like, really, that's super exciting. I'd love to look at the script. Will you send the script? And I was like, absolutely. And so got off the phone and was like, see you at the Christmas party. And immediately fired off a PDF of the script to him. And then just thought, well, man, that's crazy. That's really awesome. We haven't even had to ask or present. It was just it happened in a very casual way. But Arnold and I, we were just like, we're still on this track. We're still trying to get 5-10 grand, and we had a meeting set up for the following week with another friend of ours, and who potentially had other contacts to people that might be at that kind of financial bracket that could put 5 or 10 grand in. And so we had a meeting with her, and at this meeting, my phone suddenly rings, and it's our guy who had just read the screenplay over the weekend. And so in the middle of this meeting that we were already happening, just everything stops, and I sit down, and he basically had, like, I don't know, 10 power questions. I mean, they were like very hardcore about, do we have our shit together? And have we thought about this? And he kind of went down the line. But, thankfully, having done the business plan and done the research, we were able to answer all of those questions. Pop quiz. And so by the end of the call, he said, well, I'll tell you what, he said, stop asking anybody else for money. I want to come in for the rest of this. I hung up, and I looked over to Arnold and our other friend who was helping us figure out how to raise more money. And I was like, well, it looks like we're going to make a movie.
That's given us faith that, this can happen, that there is money out there for high risk, high creative visions, and Alter Egos is a product of that.
Having put that date on the calendar and that date fast approaching, the next step for us was to put together a really great team to help us get this movie made. So check out this next episode here, where we're going to dive into our pre-production process.